Hi everyone, my name is Fonseca. I'm 19 years old and I was diagnosed with autism when I was 2. I'm going to tell you my little story about how I was cured from autism. I wrote an essay for college about my childhood, where I talk about my experience with autism and how it has impacted me. I wanted to share this story with the hope that it will be of help for those who struggle with or know someone with autism. The title of my essay is The Boy Who Couldn't Speak. Speaking is one of the most, if not the most, significant method of communication there is. That's why a child must learn how to speak from an early age. Typically, an average child says their first words when they're between 1 and 1.5 years old. I, however, was about 6 years late. I was born on December 25th, 2001, a true Christmas miracle for my parents. I was seemingly healthy and showed no signs of any complications whatsoever. However, my father knew that something was going to happen. Even before he married my mother, he received a vision from God, a prediction that he would be the father of a son named Samuel. The boy would have a problem, but God would cure him, and his life would serve as proof that he performs miracles. True to God's word, I started to show some problems. It was hard for me to make eye contact, and when I turned 1, I was starting to not respond to my parents as often. And just as my dad feared, I was diagnosed with autism when I was 2 years old. Autism spectrum disorder is a genetic disability that impairs the social skills of those affected by it and causes repetitive habits such as spinning around in circles, repeatedly hitting their heads on a wall, rocking their head back and forth, and putting objects in a straight line. While there is therapy available for the effects of the disorder to be reduced, it's not completely curable. It's difficult for a person who is diagnosed with autism to speak, make friends, or interact with the environment around them. So those on the spectrum most likely cannot live an ordinary life. My parents were devastated. Soon afterwards, my treatment would begin. I took specialized classes to improve my communication, and at home, my parents always tried to break my incessant habits, especially my dad. Whenever I would start to hit my head on the wall, my dad would tell me to stop. If I lined up my cards in a straight line for the 10th time, my dad would spread them around. And whenever I drank too much apple juice, my parents would only buy orange juice. And when I wouldn't stop drinking that, they would switch to grape. It was sometimes painful for my parents to see me not being able to complete the simplest of tasks. My dad, for example, would ask my friend Andre to get the phone for him, and he would be gone and back in a flash with the phone in his hand. Then my dad would put the phone back and ask me to get it. Instead of doing the same, I would stare at him blankly, not understanding what he was saying. "The phone, Sam," he said, making a phone symbol. "Give me the phone." But it was no use. I would simply stand silently, looking around for something else to do. Sometimes he would stare at my eyes, trying to search for that precious boy lost in there somewhere. He would have given his life to make that boy come out and see the world as soundful, cheerful, and beautiful as it is. He seemed so helpless. The only thing he could do is pray. My mom would spend countless nights crying and praying for me. She would ask herself, how would my son communicate? When would he talk? Could he even talk one day? Would his vocabulary be limited to a handful of unintelligible grunts and squeals, even as an adult? My dad, a devoted man of God, prayed to Jesus every night for him to bless me with wisdom and knowledge, and begged that if he was planning to cure me, as he promised, he hoped he would do so soon. One day, my dad was driving to Burger King in Shrewsbury, and 7-year-old me was sitting in the back seat. The car was silent, as were all my trips with my dad. Suddenly, my dad heard a new sound coming out of my mouth. It wasn't a hungry whine or an uncomfortable grunt. It was a single word, my very first one, that ran through my lips almost effortlessly. "Daddy?" My dad turned around in shock, almost unable to believe that a word came out of my mouth. He gently yet incredulously asked, "What did you say?" My dad was happy with what I did, I thought. I should do it again. Daddy! My dad cried out of pure joy, relieved that he wasn't mistaken, and that I, the boy who had never spoken a word in his entire life, had just spoken 2 words, the most beautiful ones. He glanced back at the road and then back at me. "Say it again, Sam, say it again." I laughed with excitement and exclaimed, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy!" My words were seemingly coming out of nowhere, as if a switch in my brain had been turned on. For my dad, it was just a miracle he was waiting for. He couldn't lose that moment. He couldn't let it go. As my dad drove on, he always kept glancing at me, as if I would silence myself if he stopped paying attention, all while I joyously called to him over and over again. After 7 years, I finally beat autism. I don't have any memories of any event that occurred before I could talk. I'll never know for sure what life was like for young me if I see everyone as clearly as I do now, or if everything was just a mental blur, a fogginess that no glasses could fix. Did I choose to ignore the environment around me, or was I not able to perceive it at all? When people tried to talk to me, did I ignore them on purpose? Some say that those who suffer from autism live in their own world, almost completely disconnected from reality. I prefer to imagine myself when I had autism as a child trapped inside a foggy glass box. No matter where I looked, my view was distorted, and those seeing me from the outside viewed me as a slightly opaque figure. I would normally try to speak, but no words that came out of my mouth would be clear. I looked like a normal child, but something was wrong. My special meetings and the discipline my parents gave me gradually made the box clear and my voice more intelligible. However, on that fateful day that I was sitting in that car, God shattered the glass prison, not leaving a single shard unobliterated. I could finally look around and perceive my surroundings. I could finally interact with the people who loved for me, cared for me, and prayed for my well-being. I could finally speak. Today, I study at Worcester State University as an economics major. I won 4 gold medals in the National Math Olympics and a gold medal in the Astronomy Olympics. I made it on the Dean's List and was invited to join the honors class in my college. And I'm making plans to one day enroll in MIT. I hope that this testimony helps you believe that God can perform miracles. Thanks for your time.